Hi, this is Doug Moench, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Hello, loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is another retrospective bonus episode for you, the loonies, and in particular, the newer loonies who may not have heard these interviews before. I'm your High Priest of Khonshu, Ray. Welcome. And over the course leading into the festive break and into the new year, I'll be re-releasing some interviews that we've had with some great Moon Knight alumni. So this is the third one to come from our episode 100, which was way back a couple of years ago, I think. And this was the jewel in the crown. Not to say that the other interviews were any lesser, but I had the absolute pleasure and honour of speaking with Doug Moench, the creator of Moon Knight. And so I'll present this to you if you haven't heard it before. If you have and just want to re-listen, please do. It was a great chat with Doug. Again, a little bit of context. I think it was 4 o'clock in the morning for me to sync up with Doug over on the other side of the world. And I had a huge, I think, cold or a head cold. So apologies in advance for the voice. I was a little croaky, but I was not going to pass up this opportunity to speak to Doug Moench. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. There is plenty to unpack here. And I've actually, just incidentally, got more of some of the chat after the official interview, which I may release later on as well. It's a lot shorter, obviously, because the main bulk was in this. But who knows, I might just release that for you, the loonies. We chatted a little bit about Batman. Anyway, enjoy this interview. Yes, loony listeners, this is the High Priest of Khonshu, Ray, from Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast, and we are absolutely honoured to have with us for our 100th episode, none other than Doug Moench, the creator and writer of Moon Knight. Doug, hi, how are you?
All right. How are you doing, Ray?
Oh, yeah. Good. You know, a little scratchy in the throat, but I'm very happy to be here and very happy to be chatting with you.
All right.
Look, kicking off, I guess I wanted to take you back, Doug, to around the time that Moon Knight was created back in the 70s and kind of get a picture of what it was like to work at Marvel. How was it like? What was it like, in the office back in those days? Was it quite stressful? Were there a lot of really pressing deadlines?
Well, yeah. Yeah, but it was funky, man. It was really a small office, but the bullpen actually was a bullpen. And, you've seen in, what was that, the bullpen bulletins page and Stan's soapbox and all that, and they talk about the bullpen being one big happy family. Well, it really was at that time. I can't tell you how much fun it was. It was stressful, as you say, and people were always blowing deadlines, and many nights you had to stay up all night and just get something done,
Yeah.
But my girlfriend at the time later became my wife. She was friendly with all the guys in the bullpen, all these older guys. Of course, now I look at how old I am now, and I'm thinking back then the older guys were in their 40s and 50s. Wow, were they old? But it was weird to have, my girlfriend was the same age as me, early 20s, I guess, and we become friends with all these guys in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even. I think John Verpoorten was close to 70, and he became one of our best friends. He was a terrific guy. I remember everybody was scared of him because he was in charge of trafficking. He was the deadline enforcer, right?
Yeah.
But I was never afraid of him because I never blew a deadline, so it was easy for me to become friends with him.
Yeah.
And even call him out for his bluff, you know. But he was great. He had a great apartment in Manhattan, and he had this was way before, well, not way before, but 10 years before, I guess, home video.
Mm-hmm.
And he had an actual movie projector and a screen and, you know, bootleg prints of Citizen Kane and Jaws and The French Connection. And
wow,
he had actually a list of, I think it was 106 movies.
Wow.
And every time he invited us over, he'd pull out the list and say, okay, pick one. And they were all good, too. There wasn't a single stinker in there. But why would you pay a fortune for a bad movie, right?
Oh, look, it's, you know, this day and age as well, bootlegs, you know, run common.
Well, these weren't really bootlegs. I think these were stolen prints. You know.
Oh, okay, even better.
It was a black market. The theater's projectionist or whatever would just steal the print.
Oh my gosh!
And then put it up for sale on the black market, and good old John, you know, he would snap them up, man. Why not? He loved movies.
So apart from him being quite the stickler with the deadlines and stuff,
yeah. No, he wasn't making money. He never charged anybody to see these movies. You know, he just loved the movies.
Yeah. Was there any joker or funny person in the office that you know you'd always kind of lean to?
Joker. Well, everybody had their joke. I remember, I think it was Don McGregor and maybe Jim Salicrup, maybe a few other of these guys. I remember they descended on Tony Isabella and put him in a box and tried to mail him to California, ship him off to California.
Oh, really?
But, you know, yeah. There was stuff like that going on all the time, but
that sounds cool.
I don't think there was any one particular Joker. No.
And how did you, like, I guess, working on the titles that were on there at the moment? Like, how did The Office? I mean, did you have big kind of office meetings?
It was weird. Marvel for the longest time had been sort of like static in terms of the output, you know, the actual volume of pages produced per month. And then they reached a point where they decided to really up the number of available Marvel titles, right? Mm-hmm. And found out, oh my God, you know, we need more writers and artists, right? We can't do this with the people we have right now. So I think I was one of the first ones they reached out to. I was not in the New York area. I was living in Chicago, and very happily, you know, from girlfriends to making money, I couldn't believe it. I was a long hair before they invented the word hippie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When the Beatles came on Ed Sullivan, I stopped going to the barber shop. And we called ourselves long hairs or heads or freaks or whatever. And I remember one day walking down the street past a construction site, and all the construction workers started yelling, "Hey, hippie." And I'd never heard the word before. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And I got to my apartment. I lived with 3 girls at the time. And one of them said, "Oh, yeah, there was a thing on the news last night about this new thing in California. Long hairs are calling themselves hippies or something."
Wow.
So overnight it became a new word, at least in the Chicago area.
Yeah.
I assume in the New York area, anywhere other than California, where it had been around for a couple of months, I guess.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was very, very happy living that kind of lifestyle. And then when I started selling stories, it's like, wow, you could live this lifestyle like a king now, you know, with money. Oh, geez, you know. So the phone rang one day, and I had gotten a job with the Chicago Sun-Times. That's a pretty big deal.
Wow, yeah,
newspaper in the States. And I'd gotten a job there not as a reporter, just as like a flunky who worked in the communications room, all the UPI and the AP and the Reuters and all of that. All those machines, the telex machines, you know. Now it's all computers now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just took care of those machines and tore off the stories as they came across the wire and distributed them.
Oh, right.
But I was working the graveyard shift, like 1 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Sorry, Doug.
Yeah.
So were you writing like on the side, or just
Well, I had just started selling stories to Creepy and Eerie and Vampirella, right?
Oh, right.
Then I got this job, an hourly wage job, and it was graveyard shift, and I ended up being the only one there.
Right.
And out of the 8-hour shift, there was about 15, 20 minutes of actual work, right?
Cool.
You had to make sure all the teletype machines are loaded with enough paper to last through the night.
Mm-hmm.
And then before your shift ends, you go from machine to machine and tear off all the stories and distribute them, right?
Yeah.
So the 7+ hours in between, nothing to do. So I would sit there and write Creepy and Eerie and Vampirella stories. So I'd get paid by the hour and by the story.
Was that done, the creepy stories, Vampirella stories, did that come about because you were working in the graveyard? You're finding yourself by yourself in the dead of night. Was that it? No.
No, I had sold those. I had started selling them before I got that job.
Right. And
the way that happened was, have you ever heard of Don Glut? It's Glut.
No.
He used to write comics for Gold Key. He did some Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
He's probably best known as the author of The Dinosaur Dictionary, which is sold in museum gift shops,
Oh, okay. Cool.
And it's an evergreen, right? He's technically not a paleontologist, but he talks to all the actual paleontologists and knows pretty much as a paleontologist. But anyway, he became a good friend when he called out of the blue when I was maybe 14 and had a fan letter published in Spider-Man. And he saw the fan letter and said, Doug Moench, Chicago, Illinois, looked me up in the Chicago phone book, because he lived in Chicago also, and just called out of the blue and said, hey, I'm Don Glut, and I'm renting the complete Captain Marvel serial, all 15 chapters, and I'm going to show it in my basement next Saturday. If you chip in 50 cents, you can come and watch it. My mother will make popcorn,
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay. So that's how I got to know Don Glut. And then fast forward maybe 4 years or so, whatever, I hear from Don that he sold a story to Creepy.
Right.
And I thought, wow, if he could do it, I could do it, Because to amuse ourselves, we used to, hang out together, read comic books, and then we would each write stuff just for the hell of it and take turns reading what each other had written. And I felt like my stuff was way better than his, Very cocky guy.
Oh, good.
But, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was about to say, it's good. It's good that you had that confidence as well, because I guess that would free you up from not being inhibited in any way to write your stories.
No. What did I have to lose,
Yeah, exactly.
But after he said that, I said I could do this, and I sat down to write a story, and before I was halfway done with the first story I ever wrote, I had ideas for 2 or 3 more.
Cool.
And then... it ended up, I wrote 5 stories in 5 days.
Wow.
And each one only took like 4 hours or 5 hours, whatever, an afternoon. Now, they were only 7-page or 8-page stories, whatever. Yeah. And so at the end of the 5 days, I just took all 5 stories and put them in an envelope and, wrote a little cover letter and sent them unsolicited in the mail to Creepy, Yeah. Archie Goodwin was the editor at the time. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I was a long hair very involved in music and girls, basically. And I promptly forgot about the 5 stories that I'd written. I went back to my old ways, right? Yeah. And, months later, an envelope, it shows up in the mail from Warren Publishing. And I thought, I forgot about those stories. I opened it up, and it was a check for $125, right? This is 1969 or something. It was like a fortune.
They must have been impressed. Yeah, they must have been impressed.
Yes, and I thought, oh my God, they bought one of my stories, $125. Wow. Jeez. Then I opened the flap of the check, and the bottom part, it listed all 5 stories. They were paying a whole $25 a piece, Well,
that's still great, though, isn't it?
So well, the good news is they loved all 5 stories. The bad news is they only paid $25 a story. My God. Yeah. But that's a lot of money in '69, So I kept it up, and
what were you reading at the time? Like what?
A lot of science fiction and fantasy and horror.
Yeah. So you're a big horror fan, like?
I was reading weird stuff too. Esquire magazine. I read that all the time for some reason. They had really good writers, and they were writing about stuff I couldn't have cared less about. I remember this one article about trout fishing. I couldn't care less about trout fishing, but I thought it was one of the best written things I'd ever seen.
That's really good. So you appreciated it for its quality, like
Yeah. I didn't care. I remember suddenly becoming fascinated by all these words I'd never really been familiar with before, and I began, stockpiling words in my brain and looking them up in the dictionary. And my real early writing is just god awful because it's me showing off how many big words I know. It's really bad stuff, but it led me to regular writing.
Yeah. So, and you must have been writing for since you very early on as well. Like you mentioned, so prior to when you were 14 as well. It just seems that you obviously are very attuned to writing, very interested in writing prose.
Yeah, I don't know how that came about, but I have a grade school mimeograph, not mimeographed. What was the other process? Whatever it was called. Hand-cranked printing thing. And I actually wrote and drew a comic strip for this thing when I was in grade school called My Dog Sandy. And I did have a dog named Sandy, but I had forgotten all about this thing where I fall down a cliff or something, and my dog Sandy comes and rescues me. And where did this come from? I don't know. And then I wrote something in high school for English class, and the English teacher asked me to stay behind after the class, and then she said, I want you to take this story to the literary magazine editor now and tell them I sent you, and, that's going to guarantee they'll publish it, right? Yeah. And that, it was a ripoff, total ripoff of an EC comic book story.
Right.
About, I don't know, do you know the EC comics?
No, I'm familiar with them.
Okay, there was one, they were very big on social justice stories, and there was this one allegorical science fiction story about blue robots and orange robots, and they're having this big war, the blue robots hate the orange robots and vice versa, and a human is sent and the human's in a, like an astronaut outfit, a spacesuit. You can't see his face. But at the end, after he has worked out this thing between the blue and the orange robots, he takes off his space helmet, and it's a black guy. And it's like, wow, that really made an impression on me.
Yeah, that would be quite... Yeah.
So I totally ripped that thing off. I didn't, not word for word. I didn't look at the comic book at all. I just sat down and started writing a story, and it came out. It was that story, totally ripped off.
Wow!
But it got published. It got published in the high school literary magazine.
Yeah,
and
that
then
would have made waves.
And then, I remember all the black guys in the high school when they found out I was the one who wrote it. All of a sudden, I'm okay.
Oh wow! That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but I never told them I stole it.
No,
then
of course
it wouldn't
not.
have been so cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess without knowing I was a writer, you could look back and see these things. Well, you were a writer all along. You
just keep coming back to it.
Categorize it that way.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, the distraction of girls and music as well would have.
Oh yeah, that is great.
Would have kind of like.
Great. That was there's another thing.
Yeah.
Before I started writing commercially, somehow I ended up with this. Somebody in my high school told me to go see this guy at radio station WLS in downtown Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Because they're thinking of doing something with the youth. So I go to this meeting and I walk out. And now I'm going to be the editor and the head writer of WLS Generations, a new magazine that's modeled on Rolling Stone, which had just started.
Wow.
I think it only had 1 or 2 issues out, and already this Chicago radio station wanted to get their version out.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I get this press pass. I end up, getting high with the Who and and get front row for Jimi Hendrix.
Wow.
And, meeting all these people is unbelievable.
Yeah, that would have been
the magazine never came out.
But it still was a great gateway to go to have the opportunities to do all that.
I did the interviews. I met the people. I got to the to the concerts. It was great. Yeah,
fantastic. I want to now kind of just turn to Moon Knight himself. You creating these stories, you're being informed by, some science fiction, what you're reading. Later on a bit of horror, as you mentioned, with Creepy. Moon Knight, how obviously first seen in 1975 in Werewolf by Night number 32, which you were writing. How did he come about? Take us through how you decided to introduce him. What was the pitch that you kind of
First, they had asked me to write this thing called Man-Wolf, and I said okay. But I didn't really like it. And then they asked me to write Werewolf by Night, and I liked that title much more. And the reason I didn't like Man-Wolf, I don't know if you remember that, he was an astronaut who was J. Jonah Jameson's
son.
What, nephew or son?
Okay.
Something like that.
Yep.
And they told me I had to have J. Jonah Jameson in every issue of Man-Wolf to help the sales. And I kept telling them, J. Jonah Jameson is not going to get one single person on Earth to buy a copy of Man-Wolf, more than are already buying it. And they said, but he's big in Spider-Man. I said, no, Spider-Man's big in Spider-Man. J. Jonah Jameson is a fun character, but he's not the one making the sales. Come on. They said, well, you got to put him in there. All right, I'll put him in there. And then they said, and by the way, you can't do anything that will make J. Jonah Jameson upset. And I said, what do you mean? Well, because he's in Spider-Man, you can't do anything in Man-Wolf that the Spider-Man readers might not know about that would make him upset in an issue of Spider-Man. The Spider-Man writer can't deal with your stuff from Man-Wolf. And so don't do anything that would make him upset. And I said, his son or nephew is a werewolf. How's he not
Exactly.
going to be upset?
Yeah, keep a
So
poker
I
face.
hated that. I just hated that title. And then when they said, "Would you do Werewolf by Night?" I said, "Absolutely, but only if I can drop Man-Wolf."
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "Oh, okay." So now I'm the writer of Werewolf by Night, and very new to Marvel.
Yeah.
Feeling my way. Feeling kind of like I don't have the right to do anything radical to these sacred Marvel comic books, you know.
Well,
I wish I had been.
Yeah, I mean, you just had that talking to about J. Jonah Jameson, so.
Yeah, I wish I had been bolder from the very get-go. I eventually became bold and broke all the rules, but at this point, I was trying to be deferential. And it was time to, come up with the next issue of Werewolf by Night after me not doing, what I considered really great stories so far. They were okay. And I think somebody in the office mentioned, well, so-and-so came up with the committee, and maybe you should bring the committee back. And I think it was Gary Friedrich or somebody.
Oh, so they featured somewhere else, did they, beforehand?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And someone suggested I use the committee, and then I found out who the committee were, and I said, well, they're really boring. I don't want to use them. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. How about if the committee hires a mercenary to kill the werewolf? And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. And then I can create this new character, and it won't be these boring guys in business suits. It'll be a flashy character. So I set out, well, who would be best to kill the werewolf? Well, someone who uses silver weapons, because silver hurts the werewolf, and and tied to the night, because werewolf only comes out at night. What's at night? The moon. Okay, I'll base this character on the moon. Because the moon makes the werewolf change. And this is going to be the opposite of a werewolf, and so I knew he was. And as soon as I said the moon, oh man. And I'll have a costume that's like the moon, just black and white, jet and silver. No color on the costume. What an ordeal that was, getting the colorist not to put color on that costume. They felt like they weren't doing their job if they didn't put, light blue on them or something.
Hey, you're giving him a break.
Leave it alone.
Yeah, you're giving him a break,
Yeah. I'm making your job easier. Just leave it alone, black and white.
Yeah.
So, and then I came up with, the silver, the cestus, like the gladiator.
That's one of my favorite bits, actually. The cestus.
Yeah, the spiked knuckles thing made out of silver. Man, when he punches a werewolf, the werewolf's going to feel it.
Oh, it's quite
And
gruesome,
then the throwing darts are made out of silver. Plus, how about a crescent shape? Because that's the moon, right?
Yeah.
All this stuff started falling into place. Yeah. And I thought, well, this is pretty good. Now, the werewolf is the star of the book, so the guy going after the werewolf is going to be the villain. But on the other hand, the star of the book is a werewolf, so anybody fighting a werewolf is kind of a good guy,
Yeah, true.
So I thought, well, my new villain is also kind of a hero. He's going to be an anti-hero.
Yes.
It's good that he's trying to stop a werewolf, but our werewolf is Jack Russell, and we know Jack is a good guy. He doesn't want to be a werewolf, so anybody who goes against him is a good guy and a bad guy, or just a much worse bad guy. Either one.
Yeah, I think it was... Yeah, it really played out well in those issues, because you really do get the sense that he is a villain at the beginning, but I love it how towards the end he gets some empathy for Jack Russell, and it ends up being quite good at the end. Nice little team up against the committee. Yeah.
And now I did not have to pitch this to anybody, because you were asking what the bullpen was like back then.
Yeah.
The bullpen was wonderful in one certain way that I valued way above all others, and that was, it was such a sort of shoestring budget kind of outfit, you know.
Yeah.
It was a low-profit enterprise, Marvel Comics, and they couldn't afford to have an editor for every book. So they had like an editor-in-chief, and then they had a couple of assistant editors who were really nothing but glorified proofreaders.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, and then they hired what they thought were good writers and put the writers on the books they thought these writers would be best on.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, if they succeeded at that, there was no editing involved. The writer was his own editor. The writer was in total control. That's what I loved about the early
That would
Marvel.
be awesome, yeah.
And the middle Marvel, all the way up to, you know, pretty much when I quit. I quit because Jim Shooter came along and decided he was going to micromanage, and I can't do this.
Yeah, you
but
lost
anyway,
that freedom, yeah.
Yeah, and so and you know, it worked out good. If it turned out that someone was doing a lousy job, you just took them off that book and put someone else on it, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, you know, remold a writer who was not right for that book or was not a good writer, you know, shouldn't have any job maybe. If you got the right writer on the right title, that's all you needed to do.
Well, exactly. So it's a bit more like playing to their strengths, right? So and you keep the title fresh by having a different writer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was exciting. It was so exciting. It was, you know, the freedom really made you go wild, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if you went too far, you found out about it, but usually after the fact, it was too late, but okay, don't do that again, that kind of thing. And I don't think any of us ever went really too far.
Okay.
We knew what, you know, we could do in a Marvel comic and what we shouldn't do. And so there was no pitching. All there was Len Wein was the editor-in-chief at the time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in that bullpen bulletins page or whatever, they tell you what, you know, little 2-sentence what's coming up in each issue of each title.
Yeah.
You know, Fantastic Four, 132, you know, Dr. Doom does this or that, whatever.
Yeah.
So the editor-in-chief actually had to put all that together. So he would call each writer and say, well, what are you doing in this issue? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I got the call from Len Wein, all right, I'm doing the bullpen bulletins page for May or whenever it was. Yeah. What's in Werewolf by Night number whatever it was?
Yes.
And I said, well, I was just coming up with this new character. He's going to be a good bad guy or a bad good guy, a mercenary, a guy who is hired by the committee to kill the werewolf or stop the werewolf, whatever. Yeah. And he says, oh, that's a good idea. Okay, what's his name? And I said, well, right now I got about 15 names. 15 names?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I can't. There's one I like more than the others, but it doesn't seem quite right, so I might have to add more names to this list before I get the right. He says, read me the list.
Yeah, what kind of names?
Read me the list. So I read him the list. I go to, you know, Blood Moon, and he goes, yeah, that's okay. But and I get to like the 5th or 6th one. I go, Moon Knight. And he goes, that's it, Moon Knight. That's what I said. Yeah, that's my favorite too, but something is telling me it's not quite right. And he said, no, that's good. Do that one. And I said, okay, good. That's the one. Of the 15 I've got so far, that's the one I like also. So that's how it happened, you know.
Great.
It was pretty simple.
And you mentioned, so, you know, editors-in-chief, but no editors per se.
No.
And the different run of names. Was there any interesting, like any part of Moon Knight that kind of didn't make the final iteration that... You know, were you trying out different ideas on him that you thought at the end, oh, well, no, I'll stick to the mercenary, I'll stick to the silver, the crescent?
Yeah, probably, but I can't remember what they were.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I mean, you know, all kinds of things go through your head, and most of them you don't even bother jotting down.
Yeah, for sure.
Just go, no, maybe not, you know, and just... all these things are preliminary, and then you reach a certain point where you're convinced it will become something, and if you get to that point, then you start writing down everything. and you use just about everything. At least in my process, that's how it worked out.
Yeah.
Once I started writing things down, I was pretty sure they were worth writing down and
Yes.
worth doing, you know.
Yeah, and so like in fast forwarding a little to 1980 when Moon Knight does get his first title, and I know that there were we've actually covered on the show as well a lot of the stories in the Rampaging Hulk magazine. Moon Knight did pop up here and there before he got his own title in 1980, and there was a shift with. I guess from being associated with supernatural, with the werewolf, to then being part of Egyptian, like mythology. What kind of made you kind of lean towards the Egyptian mythology? Was it something that you were interested in at the time and you found applicable?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's this museum on the south side of Chicago I think it's called the Oriental Museum or the something Oriental Museum. And I remember going there, you know, when I was maybe 6, who knows? And it's one of the better museums for ancient Egyptian stuff, and that just really got me for some reason. Right now, I have all these museum replicas of Horus, Isis, and Anubis and Sebek, and all of them. There's so many, Hathor and Osiris and. Just Thoth. It goes on and on and on. There's so many. Bast,
Yes.
And I have little statuettes of all of them. They're beautifully done.
Cool.
Anyway, so, I guess once... it surprised me every time an editor would ask me to do I remember doing the Werewolf by Night. Okay, I thought I was just coming up with a villain hero, whatever, to fight the werewolf.
Yes.
And then I started hearing from fellow writers and editors and assistant editors. Like I said, they're just proofreaders. Like, wow, I really like that Moon Knight character. I go, oh, really? Oh, thanks. And then not thinking anything of it. And then it turned into, hey, we got this book, Marvel Premiere or whatever it is, or Marvel One Shot. I don't know. Why don't you do a Moon Knight story? I go, oh, really? Yeah, just do a Moon Knight on his own without the werewolf. I go, wow, that'd be weird. Okay, let me see. And I'd go home and it'd start gushing out, And it's like, I don't need werewolf to do this character, but the character needs to change some away from this, hard-hearted mercenary who will do anything for money or virtually anything, into a little more altruistic, more of a good guy if he's going to be the star of this book, this Marvel Premiere, whatever. So he started changing slowly but surely through. I think there were a couple of Marvel premieres or a couple of one-shots or two-parters, whatever. And then they asked for him to be in, there was that black and white magazine, like 50-page story. And then I think there was the Hulk, the black and white Hulk, and then that turned into a full process color. And he was in the back of that. And slowly but surely, he's becoming more and more of a good guy, less of an anti-hero, more of a full hero. And the way I thought I'd do that is, he develops a conscience, and he actively, deliberately decides to atone for his mercenary past, And then we get finally to where they said, how about a regular monthly color book, a regular Marvel comic, Moon Knight. And the only thing I was told I had to do was give a fully developed origin story in the first issue. And other than that, go to it, do what you want. So once I was faced with that, that's when I guess I got really into the ancient Egypt stuff.
Oh yeah, it's one of the favourite kind of aspects of Moon Knight for many fans. Especially, it's also been elaborated on in the later runs with Warren Ellis, Jeff Lemire, and most recently Max Bemis. So we have a visual representation of, because before in your title back in Volume 1, it was pretty much the statue of Khonshu, which we see as a representation. And like these days, we get like Khonshu represented kind of with the bird skull, and he's quite it's almost like a conscience to Moon Knight as well. With Moon Knight's, the other big aspect he had is, I guess, his personalities, which were kind of have later on developed to become something, I think, much more than they were originally intended. What was the idea behind actually giving him a Jake Lockley and a Stephen Grant and a Mark Spector? Because that kind of adds to this whole the mercenary and atoning as well.
Yeah. Well, Mark Spector was the mercenary, and once I decided that once he had to be like in New York because he's chasing a werewolf, and the globe-trotting mercenary Mark Spector, that's who he is, but now he's not, in far-flung regions of Africa or wherever. Yes. Now he's, urbanized, and then I thought, I think in that Marvel premiere one-shot or whatever, is that where I came up with Jake Lockley, I think?
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly how it came about or when it came about, but I remember thinking, well, what he needs, if he's going to, actively atone for his past and try to do good, how is he going to find out where he can do this, where he's needed? It always bugged me, with Batman and the Flash and, all of these superheroes, name any of them. I hated when they would just happen upon a bank robbery, you know?
Yeah.
And then they could do their superhero things. Mm-hmm. I always thought, not this again. So I deliberately tried to come up with a logical way for this guy to practice his craft of being this costume character who did good, that stopped evil. And I thought, well, a cab driver, he gets around the city. He talks to the people in the sleazy parts of the city. Maybe stops in a diner, a favorite spot, and he gets the lowdown on what's going. You remember Crawley and Jenna?
Yes.
He would find out what was going down. It's like an undercover cop. And then I also thought, well, if I'm going to do this thing with the helicopter and all the, this takes a lot of money. Well, he's got a lot of money from being a mercenary, but this is going to take really a lot of money. And then I thought, well, maybe he played the stock market and turned a lot of money into mega money.
Yeah.
And that's where Stephen Grant came from. Now I have enough money for a base in New York that has enough privacy for the helicopter and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. It all, to me, was a logical progression.
Yeah. And,
Mark Spector is the real guy, but the real guy has decided to change, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
that's one of the main threads that still runs through. He's want to change.
Lockley is phony, and Stephen Grant is phony. But on the other hand, he meets Marlene as Stephen Grant, and she's kind of in love with that part of him, that aspect of him, that version of him. So Stephen Grant starts to become more of the dominant one, although she knows about Mark Spector, and, she knows about Lockley too. But
it makes for a real... It actually, by having those different personalities, it actually gives you such an opportunity to kind of tell different kind of stories. You know what I mean? Like, Jake Lockley being the very on the street kind of guy, Stephen Grant, high society. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he gets to go to these charity fundraisers and meet the ultimate strata of society, and Jake Lockley is down there in the alleys,
Yeah.
No, and Mark Spector is all around the world. right?
And he's the action. He's the action guy, isn't he? So that's yeah. Look, Doug, I'm just mindful of the time as well. Really appreciate your time and sharing with us these stories on working at Marvel and on Moon Knight. I just wanted to end on, I guess, your thoughts. A couple of things. Thoughts on, I guess, Marvel. You see the Marvel characters now in the TV and in the movies. Are you a fan of them? Have you watched many of them?
Not a whole lot. I heard that Peter Quill, the Star-Lord, had great mixtapes.
Yes.
So I watched the two.
Awesome.
I watched the two Guardians of the Galaxy movies just to hear if I agreed that the mixtapes were good.
Did you like them?
And they were pretty good. I think I could do better, but what else? I watched the first Iron Man. I happen to think Robert Downey Jr. is one of the better actors around, or at least he was. Definitely. I guess he still is.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you ever see this movie called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
I know he was in it. No, I haven't watched it yet, but it's one of the.
Watch that.
Yeah, one of the big ones.
And the Wonder Boys, and you know, he's been in a number of really good movies. I always take note of him, so that's why I watched Iron Man. And I forget a couple others here and there. The first Thor, because I thought Kenneth Branagh would be an interesting director for a Marvel thing.
He was an interesting choice, yeah.
Yeah, he was an interesting choice, but he didn't do as well as I'd hoped he would, in my opinion. I'm gonna watch the third Thor because I heard that was good.
Oh yeah.
I watched Ant-Man. Ant-Man is one of my favorite characters from, way back as a Marvel Comics reader, Marvel Comics fan. I always liked Ant-Man. It seemed not many others were that thrilled with Ant-Man, but I was. I don't know.
I tell you,
I thought he was great.
Yeah, the first movie.
Ant-Man's fantastic. I was simultaneous. What's that?
The first Ant-Man is fantastic. The movie. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. No, I watched that one.
Oh, you've seen it? Okay.
I haven't seen the second one, but I did see the first one. A few others. And they're constantly telling me that Moon Knight is in development for a TV series or a movie or something. And for some reason, it just never happens.
We're still hoping.
I remember when I quit Marvel and went to DC. I remember Denny O'Neil calling me. He was my editor on Moon Knight, another editor who just said, "Do whatever you want, make me look good."
That's great.
Never interfered. That was great. But he called up and he said, "Well, we're canceling Moon Knight." And I go, "Really? Why?" "Well, I've tried, I think, 3 writers, and nobody knows how to do it except you. You're the only one who can pull this off." And I go, "Oh, all right. Well, all right." Yeah. That's your choice, not mine. I'm gone. So maybe they're having the same kind of problem turning him into a TV series or a movie.
There are so many different parts.
It's kind of different.
Yeah.
It's sort of off-kilter Marvel comic, It's not the typical thing.
It'd be hard to translate, but, I mean, Marvel Studios have done a great job of bringing characters like the Guardians of the Galaxy on the screen. Characters you'd never think you'd see on the screen, and making it work. So, we, the Moon Knight fans, have high hopes that Moon Knight will still be around, and the on screen. I mean,
I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it hasn't been up to this point, and maybe it's because it's tricky. Maybe someday some Hollywood guy will get a good handle on it, and bam, there you go.
Yeah.
Or they'll do a terrible job and it'll get canceled immediately. Who knows?
And then rebooted a few years later. Don't worry.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And just finally, I guess, obviously, massive fan of Volume 1 you'll run with Moon Knight as well. And they've been up to, I think what we're up to Volume 8 or Volume 9, different series with writers. Have you read many of them, or do you have any?
No.
Okay.
No, I haven't read any of them. Was there a guy named Charlie Houston?
Yes, he's a great. I think volume 5. I think, yeah.
Yeah, he called me up and told me he was this super Moon Knight fan, and now he was writing crime novels, and he somehow got the job of doing the new Moon Knight series. And I said, well, good for you, but I don't even think about it anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, I want to do it justice. I want it because I think what you did is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so we became kind of friendly. We had a few phone calls, a few emails back and forth, and but I could never bring myself to read what he had done or what anybody had done.
Yeah, it would be different, isn't it? I mean, I guess from a perspective of a creator, I co-created the Batman villain Bane, and Tom Hardy. There's another guy who's a really good he's cool
actor.
Yeah.
Okay, he plays Bane, and he's one of my favorite actors, and yet I haven't watched the movie yet.
Right.
I haven't watched it. And I kind of like Christopher Nolan's movies.
Yes.
Not Inception. I don't know why everybody loves that so much. Yeah. I like Insomnia and Memento. Those
Memento.
Two.
Yeah, I know Memento. Insomnia, I can't remember.
I really like them. And there's one or two others that Dunkirk is okay. He's pretty good, and yet because I did Bane, there's something that. I mean, I got the Blu-rays sitting on the shelf waiting to be watched, but I never grab it. I always grab something else. I can't sort of bring myself to watch it.
Yeah, well, the paradox of choice, I guess, a lot of things on the shelf, it's like what to watch, and we've got like streaming, Netflix, you end up like looking through and deciding what to watch and then actually watching.
As long as they keep sending me my character equity checks, I'm fine. I don't need to see it.
Yeah.
Just tell, you put Bane in another video game. How nice of you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Send me the check. I don't even get to. I used to love to get this big fat check, and I'd leave it on my desk for a week and just pick it up and look at the number every once in a while.
That must be
They don't even do that. Now it's direct deposit,
Wouldn't be as satisfying.
I never even see. So my wife says, they just put $72,000 in the, okay.
Yeah.
But I don't get to look at the check on my desk.
Yeah.
It's so disappointing now.
Maybe you can request. Maybe they can just do it just like as a token check.
Well, I still get Marvel checks and from all the other publishers, but
that's good.
I just got a check from Boom.
Oh.
Boom, you know them?
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
They reprinted Planet of the Apes, so I got a check for that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well,
yep.
Doug, thank you. This has been such a joy to kind of just recount, I guess, your time at Marvel and to chat about Moon Knight. We really appreciate you coming on the show, and thank you so much for taking your time to chat with us.
Sure.
Looney listeners, you can contact Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast, on email at itkmoonnight@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook with a Facebook page and group, and on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, Get Vocal, as well as on our website, intothenight.libsyn.com. You can also check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/itkmoonnight. Please consider checking out the bonus incentives, and any contribution will help us expand the show. A big thanks to sponsors Hello Headphones, empowering gamers to play their best. Use the code ITKMoonNight and get 10% off their online store. Also, a big thanks to Dreamland Comics. Use their code MOON and get a big 20% off their online store. We're also an affiliate member to Entertainment Earth. Please use the links to purchase any of your toy action figure needs, and each purchase helps support the show. We're a big part of The Collective, a band of a few like-minded podcasters, and please check out the links in our show notes for access to all their shows. Alternatively, you can type in hashtag TheCollectiveNet on Twitter to see all the shows and all their tweets. Finally, if you'd like to review our show, please do so on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser. This will help us get out there just a little bit more, and any loonies who don't know the show will be able to tune in. As always, take care, and may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Material used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners. Any reproduction of any properties of Marvel is solely for entertainment use only.